The call came at 2:47 in the afternoon. Dominic Santoro was in the middle of closing a deal worth $8 million when his phone lit up with the emergency contact he'd programmed 3 years ago. The one he prayed he'd never see. Maya, emergency is blood turned to ice. "Excuse me, gentlemen," Dominic said, his voice suddenly cold and final. He didn't wait for a response. He was already moving toward the door, the phone pressed to his ear. "Mr. Santoro." Maya's voice came through shaking, terrified. "It's Luca. He's not breathing. I called 911, but he's not breathing. His lips are turning blue and I don't know what to do, and I'm coming." Dominic was already running down the hallway of his office building, his expensive Italian shoes pounding against marble. "Keep him on his side. I'll be there in 90 seconds. Do you hear me, Maya? 90 seconds. He burst through the stairwell door, taking the steps 3 at a time. His security team scrambled to follow, but Dominic was faster than all of them. Behind him, he heard Marcus shouting into his radio. "Get Dr. Chun to the Riverside address now. Medical emergency. Child not breathing." Dominic's heart slammed against his ribs, so hard it hurt. Luca! His son. His 4-year-old son, who had his mother's green eyes and stubborn chin. Who loved dinosaurs and refused to eat anything green. Who called him Daddy in that small, sweet voice that could bring Dominic to his knees. Not breathing. The words echoed in his head as he exploded out of the building and into his car. His driver was already behind the wheel, the engine running. They pulled into traffic with a screech of tires. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. "Faster," Dominic growled, though they were already weaving through Chicago traffic at dangerous speeds. 85 seconds after Maya's call, Dominic's car skidded to a stop in front of the townhouse in Riverside. It was a quiet neighborhood, tree-lined streets, the kind of place where people walked their dogs and kids rode bikes. The kind of place where nothing bad was supposed to happen. Dominic was out of the car before it fully stopped, taking the front steps in 2 strides. The door was unlocked. He burst through. Maya. Upstairs. His bedroom. Dominic took the stairs faster than he'd ever moved in his life. His chest was tight. His hands were shaking. He couldn't remember the last time his hands had shaken. He found them in Luca's bedroom, the one painted with clouds and airplanes. Maya, a woman in her 50s who had been Luca's nanny for the past year, was on the floor. Luca was on his side, exactly as Dominic had instructed. His small body was frighteningly still. Dominic dropped to his knees beside his son. Luca's lips were indeed blue, his face pale. But his chest was moving. Shallow, labored breaths, but moving. "He's breathing," Dominic said, his voice rough. He put his hand on Luca's small back, feeling the rise and fall. "He's breathing, Maya." "He wasn't," Maya sobbed. "I was making him a snack, and I heard the sound from up here like choking. When I got here, he was on the floor and he wasn't breathing. I tried to remember CPR, but you did exactly right," Dominic interrupted. He gently turned Luca onto his back, checking his airway. "Luca! Can you hear Daddy?" Luca's eyes fluttered open, unfocused and glassy. He made a small sound, somewhere between a whimper and a cough. "It's okay, buddy. Daddy's here. The doctor's coming." As if summoned, Dr. Andrew Chin appeared in the doorway, medical bag in hand. He was in his 40s, calm and competent, the personal physician Dominic kept on retainer for exactly this kind of emergency. "Let me see him," Dr. Chin said, kneeling beside Dominic. Dominic moved back reluctantly, every instinct screaming at him to keep touching his son, to keep that physical connection that proved Luca was alive. He watched as Dr. Chin examined Luca with quick, efficient movements, checking his pulse, his breathing, shining a light in his eyes. "His airway is clear now," Dr. Chin said, "but his breathing is still labored. Heart rate is elevated. Luca, can you tell me what happened? Does anything hurt?" Luca tried to speak but could only manage a weak cough. His small hand reached out, and Dominic grabbed it immediately, squeezing gently. "I'm here, buddy. I've got you." "I think he aspirated something," Dr. Chin said. "The paramedics should be here any minute. We need to get him to the hospital for a full examination. There could be fluid in his lungs." The sound of sirens grew louder outside. Within moments, 2 paramedics were rushing up the stairs with equipment and a stretcher. Dominic watched, feeling helpless, as they transferred Luca's small body onto the stretcher, attaching an oxygen mask to his face. "Daddy," Luca whispered, his voice muffled by the mask. His green eyes, so much like his mother's, were wide and scared. "I'm coming with you," Dominic said immediately. "I'm not leaving you." One of the paramedics nodded. "Parents can ride in the ambulance." The word hit Dominic like a punch. Parent. Singular. Because Luca's mother wasn't here. Hadn't been here for almost 3 years. In the ambulance, Dominic held Luca's hand while the paramedics worked. They asked questions he answered automatically. Age, weight, medical history, allergies. He knew all of it by heart because he'd made it his business to know everything about his son. "We're taking him to Chicago Memorial," one paramedic said. "They have the best pediatric unit in the city." Dominic nodded, then pulled out his phone with his free hand. He scrolled through his contacts until he found the one he'd kept for 3 years. The one he'd never deleted despite everything. His thumb hovered over her name. Aria, he should call her. She was Luca's mother. She had a right to know their son was being rushed to the hospital. But the memory of their last conversation burned in his mind. The screaming, the accusations, the way she'd looked at him with such hatred before she walked away. "I can't do this anymore, Dominic. I can't live in fear. I can't raise our son in your world. I'm done." She'd left when Luca was 18 months old. Left Chicago. Left them both. In the 3 years since, she'd sent birthday cards and Christmas presents, but never visited. Never called to talk to Luca. The lawyers handled everything, the child support payments that Dominic sent religiously, the legal documents that gave him full custody. And now their son was being rushed to the hospital, and Dominic had to tell her. He pressed call. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Then her voice, the one that still haunted his dreams, came through the line. "Hello, Aria." His voice came out rougher than he intended. "It's me." Silence. Then cautiously, "Dominic? Why are you calling me?" "It's Luca." Dominic squeezed his son's hand, feeling the small fingers curl weakly around his. "He's okay, but there was an incident. We're on the way to the hospital now." "What?" The fear in her voice was immediate and visceral. "What happened? Is he hurt?" He stopped breathing. His nanny found him. "Dr. Chun thinks he aspirated something. We're going to Chicago Memorial." "Oh my God!" He heard the sound of movement, things being knocked over. "I'm coming. I'm getting in my car right now." "Which hospital?" "Chicago Memorial." "But Aria, you're in. I don't care where I am. That's my son. I'm coming." The line went dead. Dominic stared at his phone, his mind reeling. She was coming. After 3 years of absence, of silence, of pretending she didn't have a son in Chicago, Aria was coming. "Daddy." Luca's small voice pulled him back. The oxygen mask made his face look even smaller, more fragile. "I'm here, buddy. We're almost at the hospital. They're going to make you feel better." "Scared," Luca whispered. "I know, but you're being so brave. The bravest boy I know." Dominic leaned closer, keeping his voice gentle. "Remember what we talked about? When you're scared, what do? Think of happy things," Luca recited weakly. "That's right. What's your favorite happy thing?" "Dinosaurs. And ice cream. And when you read me stories at night." Dominic's throat tightened. "I'll read you all the stories you want when we get home. Deal? Deal." Luca's eyes started to drift closed. "Hey, keep those eyes open for me, okay? Keep talking to Daddy." The ambulance pulled up to the emergency entrance. The next 20 minutes were a blur of doctors and nurses, Luca being whisked away for tests and x-rays. Dominic paced the hallway outside the pediatric unit, his expensive suit jacket discarded, his shirt sleeves rolled up, his hair disheveled from running his hands through it. Marcus appeared with coffee that Dominic didn't drink and updates he barely heard. His entire world had narrowed to the door Luca had disappeared through and the clock on the wall ticking away, seconds that felt like hours. Finally, Dr. Chin emerged. "He's stable. We did a chest X-ray and bronchoscopy. He definitely aspirated something. Looks like a small piece of apple." His airway is clear now, but there's some inflammation and minor lung irritation. We want to keep him overnight for observation and antibiotics to prevent pneumonia. Dominic sagged against the wall, the tension draining out of him so fast he felt dizzy. He's okay. He's going to be fine. It was scary, but kids are resilient. He'll probably be back to driving you crazy by tomorrow. Dominic laughed, the sound brittle with relief. Thank you. Can I see him? Of course. Room 304. He's asking for you. Dominic found Luca in a hospital bed that looked enormous around his small body. He was hooked up to monitors and in 4, but his color was better. His eyes lit up when he saw Dominic. Daddy! Hey, buddy! Dominic crossed the room in 3 strides and carefully hugged his son, mindful of all the wires and tubes. How are you feeling? Tired? And my throat hurts. I bet it does. But Dr. Chin says you're going to be just fine. We just have to stay here tonight, so they can keep an eye on you. Will you stay with me? I'm not going anywhere. Dominic pulled a chair close to the bed and took Luca's hand again. I'll be right here the whole time. Luca's eyes started to close, the exhaustion and medication pulling him toward sleep. Love you, Daddy. I love you too, buddy. So much. Dominic sat there watching his son sleep, listening to the steady beep of the heart monitor, and tried not to think about how close he'd come to losing everything that mattered. Try not to think about the fact that somewhere, Arya was driving toward Chicago at this very moment. After 3 years of carefully constructed distance, after 3 years of building a life that worked, that was stable and safe for Luca, she was coming back. And Dominic had no idea what that was going to mean. 2 hours later, Dominic was still in the chair beside Luca's bed when he heard rapid footsteps in the hallway. He knew those footsteps, had memorized them years ago, the particular rhythm of her walk, the way she moved through the world with purpose and grace. The door burst open. Arya stood in the doorway, breathing hard like she'd run from the parking lot. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She wore jeans and an oversized sweater. No makeup. She looked exactly like she had 3 years ago and completely different all at once. Her green eyes, the same shade as Luca's, found their son in the hospital bed. Her hand flew to her mouth, and a sound escaped her that was part sob, part relief. He's okay, Dominic said quietly, standing up. He's sleeping. The doctor says he'll be fine. Arya crossed the room like she was being pulled by an invisible string. She stood on the opposite side of Luca's bed, her hands trembling as she reached out to touch his hair, his face, as if she needed physical proof he was alive. What happened? She whispered, not looking at Dominic. Tell me everything. So Dominic did. He explained about the apple, about Maya finding him, about the terrifying minutes when Luca wasn't breathing. He watched Arya's face as he spoke, saw every emotion flicker across it. Fear, relief, guilt. That last one cut the deepest. I should have been here, Arya said, her voice breaking. I should have been here for him. You're here now. The words came out more neutral than Dominic intended. Arya finally looked up at him, really looked at him, and the impact of those eyes meeting his after 3 years of absence hit Dominic like a physical blow. He'd forgotten how green they were, how they seemed to see straight through him. You look tired, she said softly. So do you. I drove 6 hours straight. I think I broke every speed limit in Illinois. You drove from where? Wisconsin. I've been living in Madison. Arya looked back at Luca, her hand still gently stroking his hair. I have an apartment there. Work remotely. It's quiet. Lonely, Dominic thought but didn't say. It sounded lonely. How long have you been there? Since I left. 3 years in Wisconsin. Alone. While he'd been here, raising their son alone. The irony wasn't lost on him. He's gotten so big, Arya whispered, tears streaming down her face now. I've missed so much. His birthday cards, they don't show me how big he's gotten. How he's lost that baby face. He asks about you sometimes, Dominic said before he could stop himself. Especially at night. He wants to know where his mama is. Arya flinched like he'd struck her. What do you tell him? That you love him very much. That you think about him every day. That you live far away, but you're always thinking of him. Do you tell him why I left? Dominic's jaw tightened. He's 4, Arya. What would I say? That his mother couldn't handle his father's life? That she chose safety over being a family? That's not fair, isn't it? Dominic kept his voice low, mindful of Luca sleeping between them, but the anger he'd kept locked away for 3 years was trying to claw its way out. You left. You walked. Away from both of us. From him. I left to protect him, Arya shot back, her whisper fierce. Do you remember what happened, Dominic? Do you remember the threats? The men who followed me to the grocery store? The way I couldn't sleep because every sound made me think someone was breaking in to hurt us? I handled it. You handled it by pushing me away, by disappearing for days at a time, by coming home with blood on your clothes and telling me not to worry about it. Arya wiped her eyes angrily. I was drowning, Dominic. I had a baby. I was terrified every second of every day, and the man I loved was turning into someone I didn't recognize. The man I loved. Past tense. That shouldn't hurt as much as it did. So you left, Dominic said flatly. Left me to figure out how to be a single father while running a business empire. Left Luca to grow up without his mother. I send money. I make sure he has everything he needs. Except you. Dominic leaned forward, his hands gripping the edge of Luca's bed. He needs you, Arya. Money doesn't replace a mother. And yet you're doing just fine replacing me with nannies and housekeepers and your endless parade of— She stopped, biting off whatever she was about to say. My endless parade of what? Dominic challenged. Say it. Nothing. It doesn't matter. It clearly matters to you. They glared at each other across their sleeping sun, 3 years of hurt and anger and unspoken words crackling in the air between them. Dominic could see it in Arya's eyes, the same conflicted emotions he felt. The love that had never quite died despite everything. The resentment for the pain they'd caused each other. The grief for what they'd lost. A soft whimper from the bed broke the moment. Luca was stirring, his face scrunching up. Both Dominic and Arya immediately shifted their attention to him. Hey, buddy, Dominic said softly. It's okay. You're safe. Luca's eyes opened slowly. He looked at Dominic first, then his gaze drifted to the other side of the bed. To the woman standing there with tears streaming down her face. Recognition flickered in his eyes. Confusion, then something like wonder. Mama! The word was barely a whisper, uncertain, like Luca wasn't sure if he was dreaming. Arya let out a sob she'd been holding back. Hi, baby. Yes, it's Mama. I'm here. You came. Luca's small voice was full of disbelief, like he couldn't quite believe she was real. Of course I came. I heard you were sick, and I came as fast as I could. Arya carefully sat on the edge of the bed, her hand cupping Luca's face. How are you feeling, sweetheart? Okay. Tired. My throat hurts. I know, but the doctors are taking good care of you. Luca reached up and touched Arya's face, his small fingers tracing her cheek as if memorizing her features. You're really here. I thought you were gone forever. The words were a knife to both adults in the room. Dominic saw Arya's face crumble, saw her struggling to hold it together for their son. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry I stayed away so long. It's okay, Luca said with the easy forgiveness of a child. You're here now. Will you stay? Please. Arya looked up at Dominic, a question in her eyes. He should say no, should protect himself and Luca from the inevitable pain when she left again. But he looked at his son's hopeful face, and he couldn't be the one to crush that hope. Your mama can stay as long as she wants, Dominic heard himself say. Relief flooded Arya's expression. Thank you. They spent the next hour like that, the 3 of them in Luca's hospital room. Arya asked Luca questions about preschool, about his favorite dinosaurs, about what he liked to do. Luca answered with increasing energy, clearly thrilled to have both his parents there. Dominic watched them interact, watched the way Luca kept touching Arya like he needed to confirm she was real. Watched the way Arya drank in every detail of their son, clearly trying to absorb 3 years' worth of missed moments. Eventually, a nurse came in to check Luca's vitals and give him more medication. The medicine made him drowsy again, and his eyes started to droop. Don't leave, he mumbled, fighting sleep. Either of you. Promise. I promise, Dominic said, squeezing his hand. Me too, Arya added. I'm not going anywhere tonight. Satisfied, Luca let himself drift off again. The nurse finished her checks and left, promising to return in a few hours. The room fell into heavy silence, just the sound of medical equipment beeping, and Luca's soft breathing. "Thank you for letting me stay," Arya said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "For not sending me away." "He needs you here," Dominic said simply. "I won't take that from him, no matter how I feel about you leaving." Arya looked like she wanted to say something, but a young woman in scrubs appeared in the doorway, holding a clipboard. "Mr. Santoro, I have some paperwork for you to fill out. Insurance information, consent forms." Dominic nodded and stood. "I'll be right back," he said to Arya, then followed the woman into the hallway. He was halfway through the forms when Marcus appeared, his expression concerned. "Boss, we have a situation." Dominic looked up, immediately alert. "What kind of situation?" "Word got out that you rushed out of the meeting today. Questions are being asked. And there's something else." Marcus glanced toward Luca's room. "Someone reported seeing your car on Riverside. That address wasn't supposed to be known." Ice formed in Dominic's stomach. The townhouse where Luca lived with Maya was supposed to be a secret, a safe house unknown to anyone in his business. If someone had seen him there, had made the connection to his son. "Find out who talked," Dominic said, his voice hard, "and shut down any speculation about why I was there. Make up something, I don't care what. But no one can know about Luca." Marcus nodded and left. Dominic stood in the hallway, his hands clenching the paperwork, feeling the familiar weight of his two worlds colliding. This was exactly what Arya had been afraid of. This was why she'd left. Because keeping Luca safe meant constant vigilance, constant secrets, constant fear that the wrong person would discover Dominic Santoro's greatest weakness. His son. He finished the paperwork and returned to the room. Arya had pulled the other chair close to the bed and was holding Luca's hand, watching him sleep. "Everything okay?" she asked, not taking her eyes off Luca. "Fine. Just insurance nonsense." Arya nodded, but he could tell she didn't believe him. She'd always been able to read him too well. "Dominic," she said after a moment, "we need to talk. Really talk. About what happens after tonight." "I know." He sat in his chair, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline that had kept him going since Maya's call was wearing off, leaving him drained. "But not now. Not here. Let's just focus on Luca tonight." "Okay." Arya hesitated, then added softly, "He's beautiful. You've done an amazing job with him. He makes it easy. He's the best thing I've ever done." Dominic looked at Arya, really looked at her. "He has your eyes, your smile, your stubborn streak." Arya laughed quietly, and the sound transported Dominic back 5 years to when they'd first met. Before the fear, before the danger, when it had been just the two of them, falling impossibly in love. "I've missed you," Arya whispered, then looked startled, like the words had escaped without permission. Dominic's heart stuttered. "Arya, I know. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that." She stood abruptly. "I need coffee. Do you want anything?" "No. The cafeteria is on the first floor." "I'll find it." She hurried out before Dominic could say anything else. He leaned back in his chair, scrubbing his hands over his face. This was going to be complicated. More complicated than any business deal he'd ever navigated. Because the truth was, he'd missed her too. Every single day for 3 years, he'd missed her. Missed her laugh. Missed her warmth in his bed. Missed the way she challenged him and grounded him and made him want to be better. But she'd left. She'd walked away when things got hard. And Dominic didn't know if he could trust her not to do it again. Arya returned with coffee 20 minutes later. They sat in silence, each lost in their own thoughts, watching over their son through the night. Around 3 in the morning, Dominic's phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Situation contained. False story circulating. But boss, we need to talk tomorrow. There are complications." Dominic deleted the message and put his phone away. Tomorrow's problems could wait. Tonight, all that mattered was Luca sleeping peacefully in his hospital bed with both his parents watching over him. Arya had fallen asleep in her chair, her head tilted at an uncomfortable angle. Dominic stood and gently draped his jacket over her shoulders. She stirred slightly but didn't wake. He looked at them both, his son and the woman he'd once planned to marry, and felt his carefully controlled world tilting on its axis. Everything was about to change. He could feel it, and for the first time in 3 years, Dominic wasn't sure if he was ready. Morning came with weak sunlight filtering through the hospital blinds. Dominic hadn't slept. He'd spent the night watching Luca's chest rise and fall, counting each breath like a prayer of gratitude. Arya stirred around 6 in the morning, his jacket slipping from her shoulders. She blinked in confusion for a moment before memory returned. Her eyes immediately went to Luca, then softened with relief when she saw him sleeping peacefully. "You didn't sleep," she said, her voice rough from exhaustion. "Couldn't." Dominic stretched, his muscles protesting hours in the uncomfortable chair. "Someone had to keep watch." "I could have. You were exhausted. You drove 6 hours yesterday." Arya picked up his jacket from where it had fallen, holding it for a moment before handing it back. "Thank you. For this. For letting me be here." Before Dominic could respond, Luca's eyes fluttered open. He looked between his parents and smiled, a sleepy, genuine smile that transformed his small face. "You both stayed," he said, sounding odd. "We promised, didn't we?" Arya leaned forward, brushing hair from his forehead. "How are you feeling this morning, baby?" "Better. Can we go home?" "Let's see what the doctor says first." Dr. Chin arrived an hour later with good news. Luca's lungs were clear, his breathing normal, no signs of infection. He could go home with instructions to rest and a prescription for antibiotics. "Home," Luca repeated happily, then looked at Arya. "Will you come home with us, Mama?" The question hung in the air. Dominic watched Arya's face, saw the conflict there. She'd been gone for 3 years. Coming to Luca's home, the place Dominic had built without her, would make this real in a way the hospital room hadn't. Arya started, then looked at Dominic helplessly. "Your mama can come if she wants to," Dominic said carefully. "It's up to her. Please." Luca's green eyes, identical to his mother's, were impossibly hopeful. "I want to show you my room. And my dinosaurs. And my Legos." Arya's resistance crumbled visibly. "Okay. Yes. I'd love to see your room." Luca cheered, then winced and put his hand to his throat. "Easy, buddy," Dominic cautioned. "Remember, you need to rest your voice." The discharge process took another hour. Paperwork, instructions from nurses, collecting Luca's belongings. Dominic called Marcus to bring the car around, specifying the SUV with tinted windows instead of his usual sedan. More protection. More privacy. When they walked out of the hospital, Luca between them holding both their hands, Dominic caught sight of his reflection in the glass doors. They looked like a family. A real family. The image was painful in its perfection, a glimpse of what could have been. Marcus was waiting with the SUV, his expression carefully neutral when he saw Arya. He'd known her before, had been part of Dominic's security team when she was still in their lives. "Ms. Monroe," Marcus said politely, opening the door. "Hi, Marcus. It's good to see you again." They drove through Chicago in the early morning traffic. Luca sat between Dominic and Arya in the back seat, pointing out things through the window and talking about school. His energy was returning, which made Dominic simultaneously relieved and worried about him overexerting himself. The townhouse in Riverside was exactly as Arya remembered it from the outside. A 3-story brick building with a small front yard, iron gate, security that looked subtle but was actually extensive. Dominic had bought it specifically for Luca, wanting his son to grow up somewhere that felt like a real neighborhood rather than the sterile luxury of his penthouse. Maya met them at the door, her relief at seeing Luca obvious. "Oh, thank God. I've been so worried. I couldn't sleep at all last night." "He's okay, Maya," Dominic assured her. "But he needs to rest today." Maya's eyes widened when she saw Arya. Recognition flickered across her face, then careful neutrality. "Ms. Monroe." "Hi, Maya. Thank you for taking such good care of my son." There was awkwardness in the statement. Maya had been the one raising Luca day to day for the past year. She was the one who knew his routines, his preferences, his fears. The maternal role Arya had abandoned. Maya seemed to sense the tension. "I'll make some breakfast." "Luca, how about pancakes?" "Your favorite?" "Yes." Luca started to run toward the kitchen, then remembered he was supposed to be resting. He slowed to a determined walk that made both Dominic and Arya smile. Arya stood in the entryway, looking around. The house was warm, lived in. Photos covered the walls, mostly of Luca. His first day of preschool. Halloween costume. Playing in the park. Building sandcastles. A chronicle of the life Arya had missed. "He's happy here," she said softly. "I try." Dominic shrugged off his jacket. "Come on. I'll show you around." He gave her the tour, watching her take in each room. The living room with its comfortable couches and toy bins. The kitchen where Maya was already mixing pancake batter. The small office where Dominic worked when he was home. And upstairs, Luca's bedroom. It was exactly as a 4-year-old's room should be. Walls painted sky blue with clouds. Shelves overflowing with books and toys. A bed shaped like a race car. Drawings taped to every available surface. A mobile of the solar system hanging from the ceiling. Arya walked to the bed and picked up the stuffed dinosaur lying there. "He still has this. I bought this for him when he was a baby. Rexy. He can't sleep without it." Arya pressed the dinosaur to her chest, tears streaming down her face. "There's so much I don't know. His favorite foods. What time he goes to bed. Whether he still has nightmares. I don't know my own son." Dominic wanted to be angry. Wanted to tell her that was her choice, her consequence. But seeing her standing in their son's room, holding a stuffed dinosaur and crying, he couldn't summon the anger. Just a deep, aching sadness for everything they'd all lost. "He goes to bed at 8, Dominic said quietly. "He likes mac and cheese, but won't eat vegetables unless you hide them. He doesn't have nightmares much anymore, but when he does, he comes and gets in bed with me. His favorite color is green. He wants to be a paleontologist when he grows up. He can count to 50 and write his name. He's scared of thunderstorms but brave about everything else." Arya looked at him, more tears falling. "How do you remember all that?" "Because I'm his father. This is what fathers do." The words hung between them, not quite an accusation but close. Arya set down the dinosaur carefully. "I know I don't deserve your understanding," she said. "I know leaving was the worst thing I could have done. But Dominic, I was so scared. Every day I was terrified someone would hurt him to get to you. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I was having panic attacks. I thought if I left, if I removed myself from the equation, he'd be safer. So you just disappeared? No custody fight? No visitation schedule? You signed everything I asked for and left. Because I thought that was best. I thought if I stayed away completely, no one would connect him to me. No one would use me to get to him." Arya wiped her eyes. "Every day for 3 years I've thought about him. Wondered if I made the right choice. Wondered if he hates me. He could never hate you. He asks about you constantly. Wants to know when you're coming back." Dominic crossed his arms. "And now you're here because of an emergency. What happens when he's better? Do you disappear again?" "I don't know." Arya's honesty was painful. "I don't know what I'm doing, Dominic. I just knew I had to be here. That if something happened to him and I wasn't here, I'd never forgive myself." "Mama, Daddy, pancakes are ready." Luca's voice carried up the stairs. They went downstairs to find the kitchen table set, pancakes stacked high, and Luca already in his chair with syrup on his face. "I started without you," he announced proudly. "Maya said I could because I'm still recovering." "I said 1 pancake while you waited," Maya corrected, but she was smiling. They ate breakfast together, an oddly domestic scene. Luca chattered between bites, telling Arya about preschool, his best friend Jake, his teacher Miss Jennifer. Arya listened with rapt attention, asking questions, laughing at his stories. Dominic found himself watching them more than eating. The way Luca leaned toward Arya, seeking her attention. The way Arya's entire face softened when she looked at their son. The easy connection between them despite years apart. His phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Need to brief you. Problems from yesterday. Can you call?" Dominic excused himself and stepped into his office, closing the door. He called Marcus. "Talk to me. The story about why you left the meeting is holding, but there are questions. More importantly, Victor Calabrese was asking around about the Riverside property." Dominic's blood ran cold. Victor Calabrese was a rival, dangerous and unpredictable. If he knew about the townhouse, knew about Luca. How much does he know? Not sure yet. But boss, if he's sniffing around, it's a problem. That location was supposed to be completely off the books. I know. Dominic's mind raced. Increase security on the house. I want eyes on every approach. And find out who leaked the information. I want to know by end of day. Already working on it. Are you coming into the office? Not today. I'm staying with Luca. Understood. I'll keep you updated. Dominic ended the call and stood at the window, looking out at the quiet street. His two worlds were colliding in the worst possible way. His son was vulnerable. Arya was back, bringing all the complications that entailed. And now a rival had possibly discovered his greatest secret. He needed to handle this carefully. One wrong move, and everything could fall apart. When he returned to the kitchen, Arya was helping Luca with his medication while Maya cleaned up. The scene was so normal, so perfectly mundane, that it hurt to look at. Everything okay? Arya asked, clearly reading his expression. Fine. Just work. You're lying. She said it matter-of-factly, not accusingly. I can always tell when you're lying. Your jaw does this thing. Despite everything, Dominic almost smiled. My jaw does not do a thing. It does. You clench it right here. She gestured to her own jaw. What's wrong? Not now. He glanced meaningfully at Luca. Later. Understanding crossed Arya's face. Whatever was wrong, it wasn't for their son's ears. The day passed quietly. Luca showed Arya his extensive dinosaur collection, explaining in great detail the differences between a T-Rex and an Allosaurus. They built a Lego spaceship together, Arya following Luca's very specific instructions. They watched his favorite movie, something animated with talking animals that Dominic had seen approximately 50 times. Dominic worked from his office, making calls and handling business, but he kept the door open. Kept one ear on the sounds from the living room. Luca's laughter. Arya's patient voice, answering endless questions. The domestic sounds of a family together. It felt right in a way that terrified him. Around 3 p.m, Luca started to tire. Maya suggested a nap, which Luca protested until Arya offered to lie down with him. Just until you fall asleep, she promised. They went upstairs together. Dominic gave them 10 minutes, then quietly climbed the stairs to check on them. Luca's door was open a crack. He could see Arya lying on the race car bed, Luca curled against her, his small hand clutching her sweater. Both were asleep. Dominic's chest tightened painfully. This was the image he'd carried for 3 years, the one that haunted him. Arya and Luca together, peaceful and safe. A family. He pulled out his phone and took a photo. He told himself it was for Luca, something to remember this day. But really it was for him. Proof that this moment had happened, even if it couldn't last. His phone rang. Marcus again. Dominic stepped away from the door and answered. Tell me. Found the leak. Tony Ginelli. He was at the emergency meeting when you got the call. Saw your panic, followed your car. Why? Trying to get leverage. He's been pushing for more territory. Thought if he knew something about your personal life, he could use it. Dominic's hand clenched around the phone. Where is he? We have him. Waiting for your instructions. I'll be there in an hour. And Marcus? No one else hears about this. Understand? Understood. Dominic ended the call and stood in the hallway torn. He needed to handle the situation. Needed to eliminate the threat to his son. But Luca was finally asleep, peaceful with his mother. Dominic didn't want to leave. He heard soft footsteps and turned to find Arya emerging from Luca's room, carefully closing the door behind her. He's out, she whispered. Won't wake up for at least an hour. They went downstairs together. In the living room, Arya turned to face him, her expression serious. Talk to me. What's really going on? Dominic considered lying, protecting her from the ugly reality of his life the way he'd always tried to do. But that was what had driven them apart in the first place. The secrets. The protection that felt like exclusion. Someone found out about this house, he said. A rival. He followed me here yesterday when I got Maya's call. Arya's face went pale. Does he know about Luca? I don't know. But I'm handling it. How? How are you handling it? When Dominic didn't answer, Arya's eyes widened with realization. You're going to hurt him. That's what you do, isn't it? Someone threatens you, and you eliminate the threat. I protect what's mine. By becoming the thing I was afraid of. Aria's voice shook. This is why I left, Dominic. This right here. Because you solve everything with violence and power, and I can't live in that world. I won't raise Luca in that world. You're not raising him at all, Dominic shot back. You left, remember? You don't get to come back after 3 years and tell me how to protect our son. Our son wouldn't need protecting if you weren't who you are. The words landed like a slap. Dominic felt his temper, usually so carefully controlled, starting to fray. You knew who I was when you met me. You knew what I did, what I was building. I knew, but I didn't understand. Not really. Not until I was pregnant and paranoid and convinced someone was going to hurt my baby to send you a message. Aria's hands were shaking. Do you know what that's like? To be terrified every second of every day? To look at your child and wonder if loving him is enough of a reason for someone to hurt him? Yes. The word came out harsh. I know exactly what that's like, because I've lived it every day for 3 years. Every time Luca goes to school, I worry. Every time he plays at the park, I have security watching. Every birthday party, every play date, I'm calculating risks. So don't tell me I don't understand fear, Aria. I live with it constantly. They stared at each other, both breathing hard, years of unspoken pain and anger finally surfacing. Then why do you stay in this life? Aria asked. If you're so afraid, why not walk away? Do something legitimate, something safe? Because walking away shows weakness, and weakness gets people killed. So to staying, Aria wrapped her arms around herself. How long until someone figures out that Luca exists? How long until some rival decides the best way to hurt Dominic Santoro is through his son? That's not going to happen. You can't know that. You can't control everything, no matter how powerful you are. Dominic's phone buzzed again. Marcus, checking in, waiting for instructions. I have to go, Dominic said. I have to handle this situation before it becomes a bigger problem. And what am I supposed to do? Sit here and wait while you go do whatever violent thing you're going to do. You're supposed to stay with our son. Keep him safe. Isn't that what you do best? Stay away from the hard parts. It was a low blow and Dominic knew it. He saw the hurt flash across Aria's face, saw her flinch like he'd struck her. That's not fair, she whispered. No, it's not. But it's the truth. Dominic grabbed his jacket. Maya's here. Luca should sleep for another hour. I'll be back before dinner. Dominic, wait! But he was already walking out the door, needing distance before he said something worse. Before the anger and fear and love and resentment all tangled together made him do something stupid, like beg her to stay. The warehouse where Marcus held Tony, Ginelli, was on the south side. Industrial area, the kind of place where screams wouldn't carry. Dominic's car pulled into the loading bay, and he walked in with the cold purpose that had built his empire. Tony was tied to a chair, his face already bruised from initial questioning. 2 of Dominic's men flanked him. Marcus stood off to the side, his expression neutral. Mr. Santoro, Tony said, trying for bravado despite his obvious fear. This is a misunderstanding. Is it? Dominic circled him slowly. Because I heard you followed me yesterday. Saw where I went. Started asking questions about a property that has nothing to do with business. I was curious. No harm in curiosity. There is when you're curious about my private life. Dominic stopped in front of him. What did you see, Tony? Nothing. I swear. Just a house. Did you see who lives there? Tony hesitated a second too long. No. Nobody. Dominic nodded to one of his men, who stepped forward and backhanded Tony hard enough to snap his head sideways. Let's try again. What did you see? Tony spat blood. A kid. Okay. I saw a kid. And a woman. But I don't know who they are. I didn't tell anyone. But you were planning to. Planning to use that information somehow. No. Tony stopped, realizing any answer would incriminate him. Dominic leaned in close. That kid you saw. He's 4 years old. His name is Luca. He likes dinosaurs and macaroni and cheese. He's scared of thunderstorms. He just learned to write his name. Dominic's voice was cold, controlled, terrifying in its calmness. And he is completely off limits. Do you understand me? I understand. I won't say anything. I swear on my mother's grave. Your mother's still alive, Tony. Then I swear on her life. Please. I made a mistake. I won't make it again. Dominic studied him for a long moment. Every instinct said to eliminate the threat completely. Make sure Tony Ginelli could never talk about what he'd seen. It was the smart play, the safe play. But he could hear Aria's voice in his head. You solve everything with violence and power. He could see Luca's face, innocent and trusting. You're my daddy. If you're hooked on the story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. Dominic made a decision that surprised even himself. Cut him loose. Marcus's eyebrows rose slightly, but he nodded to the men who moved to untie Tony. You're letting me go? Tony asked in disbelief. I'm giving you a chance, Dominic said. One chance to prove you can keep your mouth shut. But Tony, if I hear even a whisper about what you saw, if anyone mentions that address or that kid or anything connected to my private life, I will know it came from you. And next time, I won't be this generous. Understood? Yes. Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Santoro. Thank you. Get him out of here, Dominic said to his men. After Tony was gone, Marcus approached carefully. That was unexpected, boss. Maybe I'm trying something different. Different isn't always smart in our line of work. I know. Dominic rubbed his face tiredly. But I have a 4-year-old son who thinks I'm a hero, and a woman who left me because she was afraid of who I'd become. Maybe it's time to be someone different. Marcus nodded slowly. For what it's worth, I think you made the right call. Killing him would have created more problems. This way he owes you. Let's hope you're right. The drive back to Riverside felt longer than usual. Dominic's mind was churning with thoughts of Aria, of their argument, of the look on her face when he'd walked out. He'd been cruel. He knew that. But her words had cut deep because they were true. She was right to be afraid, right to question whether Luca could ever be truly safe in Dominic's world. He'd spent 3 years telling himself he had it under control, that he could protect his son while maintaining his empire. But today had proven how fragile that illusion was. One person following him, one moment of panic, and suddenly everything was at risk. When he got back to the house, it was after 6. The lights were on in the kitchen, warm and welcoming. Through the window, he could see Aria and Luca at the stove together, Luca standing on a step stool while Aria guided his hands. Dominic stood outside for a moment, watching them. His family, the 2 people who mattered more than anything else in his world. The 2 people he'd fight wars to protect. The 2 people who might be better off without him. He pushed that thought away and went inside. Luca turned immediately, his face lighting up. Daddy, you're home. We're making spaghetti. I'm helping. I can see that, buddy. Looks great. Aria glanced at him, her expression guarded. Dinner will be ready in 15 minutes. Maya's already left for the night. The formality in her voice stung. The easy warmth from this morning was gone, replaced by careful distance. Can I help? We've got it covered. Luca, oblivious to the tension, continued his enthusiastic narration of the cooking process. Dominic washed his hands and set the table, hyper-aware of Aria moving around the kitchen, deliberately keeping space between them. Dinner was awkward. Luca chattered as usual, but Dominic and Aria barely spoke except to respond to their son. After they'd eaten and cleaned up, it was time for Luca's bath and bedtime routine. I'll do it, Dominic said. I can help, Aria offered tentatively. Okay. They went upstairs together, falling into a rhythm that felt both foreign and familiar. Aria ran the bath while Dominic got Luca's pajamas. Luca splashed and played, telling them about the dream he'd had during his nap about a friendly T-Rex. After the bath, teeth brushed and pajamas on, Luca climbed into his race car bed with Rexy the dinosaur. Story time, he asked hopefully. Of course. Which book? The dinosaur one. And Mama has to stay too. Aria sat on one side of the bed, Dominic on the other. He read the story while Luca's eyes grew heavy, struggling to stay awake. Love you, Daddy, Luca mumbled as his eyes closed. Love you, Mama. Don't leave, okay? The innocent request hit both adults hard. Dominic looked across the bed at Aria, saw tears in her eyes again. I'm right here, baby, Aria whispered. I'm not going anywhere tonight. They waited until Luca was fully asleep, his breathing deep and even, before leaving the room. In the hallway, they stood awkwardly, the weight of the day pressing down on them. We should talk, Arya said finally. Yeah, we should. They went downstairs to the living room. Dominic poured 2 glasses of wine, handing one to Arya before sitting on the opposite end of the couch. I'm sorry, they both said at the same time. Despite the tension, they almost smiled. You first, Dominic said. Arya took a sip of wine, gathering her thoughts. I'm sorry for judging how you handle things. I know you're trying to protect Luca. I know that's all you've been doing for 3 years. It's not fair of me to come back and criticize when I wasn't here. You're right, though. About me. About the violence. Dominic stared into his wine glass. I let someone go today. Someone who could have been a threat. I let him walk away because I kept thinking about what you said. About what Luca sees when he looks at me. Arya's eyes widened. You did? Yeah. Probably the stupidest thing I've done in years. Could come back to bite me. But I'm tired, Arya. Tired of solving every problem the same way. Tired of being the person you were afraid of. I was never afraid of you, Arya said softly. I was afraid for you. For us. For Luca. There's a difference. Is there? Because you still left. I know. And I've regretted it every single day. Arya set down her wine glass and turned to face him fully. I was drowning, Dominic. I had postpartum depression that I didn't tell anyone about. I was having panic attacks multiple times a day. I couldn't sleep because I was convinced someone was going to break in and hurt my baby. And you were never there because you were always handling some crisis, and I felt so alone. Dominic's chest tightened. You never told me about the depression, the panic attacks. Because you had enough to worry about, and because I thought I should be able to handle it. I was his mother. I was supposed to be strong enough. Arya wiped her eyes. But I wasn't. And instead of asking for help, instead of telling you I was falling apart, I just left. I told myself Luca would be safer without me, but really, I was just broken and I didn't know how to fix it. Arya, let me finish. Please. She took a shaky breath. I've been in therapy for 2 years, working through everything. The trauma, the guilt, the shame of abandoning my son. I've wanted to come back so many times, but I kept telling myself he was better off without me. That he had you and Maya and a stable life, and I would just disrupt it. He needs his mother. Does he? He seems happy, Dominic. Well-adjusted. He's thriving without me. He asks about you constantly. Every birthday, every Christmas, every Mother's Day at preschool. He makes cards for a mom who isn't there. He sees other kids with their mothers and asks why his is different. Dominic leaned forward. He's happy because he's a resilient, amazing kid. But that doesn't mean he doesn't need you. Arya covered her face with her hands, sobbing. Dominic moved closer instinctively, wanting to comfort her but unsure if he should. If he was allowed. I don't know how to do this, Arya said through her tears. I don't know how to be his mother after 3 years. I don't know his routines, his friends, what makes him laugh or cry. I'm a stranger to my own son. So stay, Dominic heard himself say. Stay and get to know him. Learn his routines. Meet his friends. Be his mother. Arya looked up at him, her face wet with tears. For how long? A few days? A week? What happens when I have to go back to my life in Wisconsin? What life? You said yourself you live alone in an apartment and work remotely. What's keeping you there? Safety. Distance. The illusion that if I'm not here, he's protected from the danger of your world. That's not how it works. Luca exists whether you're here or not. The danger exists whether you acknowledge it or not. The only difference is whether he has his mother in his life. Arya stared at him, something shifting in her expression. You want me to stay? After everything? I want what's best for Luca. And what's best for Luca is having both his parents. Dominic paused. I'm not saying it'll be easy. I'm not saying we figure out us. But maybe we can figure out how to co-parent. How to both be present in his life. I hurt you. I know I hurt you when I left. Yeah, you did. But staying away because you hurt me 3 years ago doesn't help anyone. It just punishes Luca for decisions we made. They sat in silence for a long moment, the truth of his words settling between them. "I'm scared," Arya finally said. "Scared of getting close to him and then having to leave. Scared of something happening to him. Scared of falling back into that dark place where I can't breathe. Then we deal with it together this time. You talk to me when you're scared. You tell me when you're struggling. And I actually listen instead of trying to fix everything myself." Dominic reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he took her hand. "We both made mistakes, Arya, but we can learn from them." Arya looked at their joined hands, then up at his face. "What if I can't do this? What if I try and fail?" "Then you fail. But at least you tried. At least Luca knows his mother wanted to be here. I've always wanted to be here. I just didn't think I could. And now," Arya squeezed his hand, "now I don't think I have a choice. Seeing him yesterday, almost losing him, it made me realize I've been lying to myself. I told myself he was better off without me, but really, I was just too afraid to face what I'd done. Too afraid to come back and see the life you'd built without me." "It's not much of a life without you in it," Dominic admitted. The words came out rougher than he intended. "I've dated, tried to move on, but no one was you. No one made me feel like you did. Dominic, I'm not saying this to pressure you. I'm just being honest. You asked me once if I still loved you, and I never answered. So here's my answer, yes. I still love you. I never stopped, but I also can't go through losing you again. So if you stay for real. Not for a few days or a few weeks. You stay and we figure out how to be a family, whatever that looks like." Arya's breath hitched. "I love you too. I've tried not to. Tried to convince myself what we had was just young love, just infatuation. But it wasn't. It was real, and I threw it away because I was scared. So what do we do now? I don't know, but maybe we start with tomorrow. I stay tomorrow and we see how it goes. And the day after? One day at a time." Arya managed a small smile. "I can't think further than that right now." Dominic nodded. It wasn't the commitment he wanted, but it was more than he'd had yesterday. It was a start. They finished their wine in comfortable silence, both lost in thought. Around 10, Arya stood. "I should probably find a hotel. Get some sleep in an actual bed." "You can stay here," Dominic offered. "There's a guest room, and Luca will want to see you in the morning." Arya hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, thank you." Dominic showed her to the guest room, which was simple but comfortable. He provided fresh towels and a spare toothbrush, hyper-aware of the intimacy of these small domestic gestures. "Good night, Arya." "Good night, Dominic." He turned to leave, but her voice stopped him. "Dominic, thank you. For not shutting me out. For giving me a chance with him. He's your son, too. You don't need my permission to have a relationship with him." "Maybe not, but I appreciate you making it easier." Dominic nodded and left, pulling the door closed behind him. He checked on Luca, who was sleeping peacefully with Rexy clutched to his chest, then went to his own room. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, his mind too full for sleep. Arya was here. In his house. In the guest room down the hall. After 3 years of absence, of painful silence, she was here. And Dominic had no idea if this was the beginning of healing or just another way to get hurt. But for Luca, he'd take the risk. For all of them, he'd take the risk. Dominic woke at 5:30 in the morning to the sound of small footsteps padding down the hall. He was out of bed instantly, opening his door to find Luca standing in the hallway looking confused. "Daddy, I had a dream about Mama. Was she really here or did I imagine it?" Dominic's heart squeezed. He knelt down to Luca's level. "She's really here, buddy. She's sleeping in the guest room." Luca's face transformed with joy. "She stayed? She didn't leave? She stayed? Can I go see her? It's really early. Maybe we should let her sleep." Luca's face fell. "But what if she leaves before I wake up again? What if I dream her again and she's gone?" The fear in his son's voice broke something in Dominic. This was what 3 years of absence had done. Made his son afraid that his mother was just a dream, something that would vanish if he looked away. "Tell you what," Dominic said. "Let's make Mama breakfast. Then we can wake her up together. Sound good?" Luca nodded eagerly and took Dominic's hand. They went downstairs to the kitchen, where Dominic helped Luca onto a step stool at the counter. "What should we make?" Dominic asked. "Pancakes. With chocolate chips. Those are the best." They worked together in the quiet morning, Luca's enthusiastic whispers filling the kitchen. He cracked eggs with intense concentration, getting shell in the bowl that Dominic carefully removed. He stirred the batter with both hands, flour dusting his pajamas and face. "Do you think Mama will like it?" Luca asked seriously. "I think she'll love it, especially because you made it. I wish she didn't have to go away before." "Why did she go away, Daddy?" The question Dominic had been dreading. He prepared answers over the years, simple explanations for a young child. But now, with Arya actually here, the old scripts felt insufficient. "Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes," Dominic said carefully. "Your mama was scared and sad, and she thought leaving would make things better. But she missed you the whole time. She never stopped loving you." "Was she scared of me?" "No, buddy. Never of you. She was scared of other things. Complicated grown-up things." Luca processed this while flipping a pancake with Dominic's help. "I'm glad she came back, even if it was because I got sick. Is that bad?" "No, it's not bad. I'm glad she's here too." They finished cooking, and Dominic plated the pancakes carefully, adding strawberries and a smiley face the way Luca instructed. Then they crept upstairs, Luca carrying the plate with exaggerated caution while Dominic brought coffee and juice. At the guest room door, Luca knocked softly. "Mama, are you awake?" There was movement inside, then the door opened. Arya stood there in yesterday's clothes, her hair messy from sleep, her eyes widening when she saw them. "We made you breakfast," Luca announced proudly. "Chocolate chip pancakes. I helped with everything." Arya's eyes immediately filled with tears. She knelt down to Luca's level, taking the plate carefully. "You made this for me?" "Uh-huh. We woke up really early. I wanted to make sure you were still here." "Oh, baby." Arya pulled Luca into a hug, the plate balanced carefully in one hand. "I'm still here. I promised I'd stay, remember? But you didn't promise for how long." The observation was too perceptive for a 4-year-old. Arya looked up at Dominic over Luca's head, her expression devastated. This was what her absence had created, a child who expected abandonment. "How about we eat breakfast together?" Arya suggested, standing and taking Luca's hand. "All 3 of us. And then maybe we can talk about how long I'm staying." They went downstairs and ate at the kitchen table. Luca sat between his parents, chattering about the cooking process, clearly proud of his contribution. Dominic and Arya exchanged glances over his head, both thinking the same thing. How do we not break his heart? After breakfast, Arya helped Luca brush his teeth while Dominic cleaned up the kitchen. When they came back downstairs, Luca immediately asked the question they'd been avoiding. "Mama, are you staying for a long time or just today?" Arya sat on the couch and pulled Luca onto her lap. Dominic sat nearby, ready to support whatever she decided to say. "I'm staying for a while," Arya said carefully. "I'm not sure exactly how long yet, but definitely more than just today. Is that okay? Can you stay forever?" The hope in his voice was painful. Arya glanced at Dominic, who gave her a small nod. Whatever she needed to say, he'd back her up. "I'm going to try to stay for a very long time," Arya said. "But I need to figure some things out first. I need to talk to my work, and I need to find a place to stay here in Chicago." "You can stay here," Lucas said immediately. "We have lots of rooms. This is Daddy's house, sweetie. I can't just move in." "Why not? You're my mama." "Mamas and daddies live together. That's how it works." Out of the mouths of children. Dominic almost smiled at the simple logic. "It's more complicated than that," Arya started. "Actually," Dominic interrupted. Both Arya and Luca looked at him. "Luca's right. There's no reason you can't stay here, at least for now. The guest room is yours for as long as you need it." "Dominic, I can't." "Why not? You said you work remotely. You can do that from here, just as easily as Wisconsin. And Luca wants you here." He paused. "I think it makes sense. For Luca's sake." Arya searched his face, clearly trying to read his motives. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. Yes." Luca cheered, throwing his arms around Arya's neck. "You're staying. This is the best day ever." Over Luca's shoulder, Arya mouthed, We need to talk about this. Dominic nodded. They definitely needed to establish boundaries, expectations. But for now, watching his son's joy, he knew he'd made the right call. The doorbell rang. Dominic checked his watch. 8 o'clock in the morning. Too early for visitors. He felt his body tense automatically, that old instinct that unexpected meant danger. Stay here, he told Arya and Luca, his voice changing to the tone he used when he needed to be obeyed without question. He went to the door, checking the security camera first. Maya stood on the porch, but she wasn't alone. A woman Dominic didn't recognize stood beside her, professional-looking in slacks and a blazer, carrying a briefcase. Dominic opened the door cautiously. Maya, I wasn't expecting you this early. I'm sorry, Mr. Santoro. Maya looked uncomfortable. This is Karen Foster. She's from Child Protective Services. She needs to speak with you about Luca. Dominic's blood turned to ice. Why is CPS here? Karen Foster stepped forward, her expression neutral but firm. Mr. Santoro, we received a report yesterday about a child at this address who experienced a medical emergency. We're required to follow up on all reports involving children. A report from who? I can't disclose that information. May I come in? Every instinct told Dominic to refuse, to call his lawyer, to handle this the way he handled every threat. But refusing entry to CPS would only make things worse. He stepped aside. Of course. Please. They went into the living room where Arya had stood up, holding Luca protectively. The moment she saw the social worker, her face went pale. Ms. Monroe. Karen Foster's eyebrows rose. I didn't expect to see you here. Arya and the social worker knew each other. Dominic felt his stomach drop. Hi, Karen, Arya said quietly. This is unexpected. You two know each other? Dominic asked. Karen was my therapist in Wisconsin, Arya explained. Before she moved back to Chicago last month to take a job with CPS. Therapist? Karen corrected. I was never formally your therapist, Arya. We met at a support group for mothers with postpartum depression. The information was coming too fast. Dominic tried to process it while also watching Luca, who was clinging to Arya's leg and looking scared. Why don't we let Luca play in his room? Karen suggested. While the adults talk. I don't want to leave Mama, Luca protested. It's okay, baby. Arya knelt down. Go play with your dinosaurs for a little while. I'll come get you soon. I promise. You promise you'll stay? I promise. Luca looked uncertain, but allowed Maya to lead him upstairs. Once he was gone, the three adults sat down. Let me be direct, Karen said, opening her briefcase and pulling out a file. Yesterday, a child at this address stopped breathing and was rushed to the hospital. Today, I arrived to do a welfare check and find that the child's mother, who according to records hasn't been involved in his life for 3 years, is suddenly present. I need to understand what's happening in this household. Luca's fine, Dominic said, his voice controlled but hard. He aspirated food. It was an accident. The doctors confirmed it. There's no abuse or neglect. I'm not suggesting there is. But Mr. Santoro, you're not exactly an unknown figure in Chicago. Your business dealings raise questions about whether this is an appropriate environment for a child. There it was. The judgment Dominic had been expecting for 4 years. The assumption that because of who he was, what he did, he couldn't be a good father. My business dealings are all legal, Dominic said carefully. Are they? Karen's expression was skeptical. Because that's not what certain investigations suggest. I'm not under investigation for anything. And even if I were, that has nothing to do with how I raise my son. Actually, it has everything to do with it. A child's safety and well-being are paramount. If there's any suggestion that he's in danger, he's not in danger from me, Dominic interrupted, his temper flaring despite his efforts to stay calm. I'm his father. I've raised him for 3 years. I love him. And yet yesterday, he stopped breathing while in your care. He was with his nanny. I wasn't even home. Which brings up another concern. How often are you not home, Mr. Santoro? How much time does this child spend with hired help versus his parent? Dominic felt the walls closing in. Every answer he gave seemed to make things worse. Dominic's an excellent father, Arya said suddenly, her voice strong. He's devoted to Luca. Everything he does is to protect him and provide for him. Karen turned to her. And where have you been for 3 years, Arya? Why are you suddenly back? I made a mistake. Arya's voice shook, but she didn't look away. I left when I shouldn't have. I was struggling with postpartum depression and anxiety, and instead of getting help, I ran. But I'm back now, and I want to be part of my son's life. Does the child know you? Does he have a relationship with you? We're building one. So, he's essentially a stranger to his biological mother who abandoned him, now suddenly in his life again, right after a traumatic medical event. Karen made notes in her file. I'm going to need to speak with Luca privately. I need to assess his emotional state, his living conditions, his relationship with both parents. Absolutely not, Dominic said immediately. You're not questioning my son without my lawyer present. Mr. Santoro, I can get a court order if necessary. Or you can cooperate now and make this much simpler. They stared at each other, the threat hanging in the air. Dominic knew he was trapped. Refusing would make him look guilty. Cooperating meant letting a social worker poke into his life, his business, his carefully constructed protection around Luca. Fine, he said through clenched teeth, but I want to be present. That's not how it works. I need to speak with him alone to ensure he feels safe to speak freely. No. Dominic's voice was hard. I've spent 4 years making sure my son is safe. I'm not leaving him alone with a stranger, even if that stranger is from CPS. I can observe through a baby monitor, Arya suggested suddenly. You can talk to him in his room, Karen. Dominic and I will listen from the hallway. That way Luca's privacy is protected, but we're still nearby if he needs us. Karen considered this, then nodded. That's acceptable. They went upstairs. Luca was in his room with Maya, building an elaborate dinosaur scene with his toys. He looked up hopefully when they entered. Mama, you came back. I told you I would, baby. Arya knelt beside him. Luca, this is my friend Karen. She wants to talk to you for a little bit. Just the two of you. Is that okay? Luca looked uncertain. Why? She just wants to make sure you're happy and healthy. Like when you go to the doctor. But I just went to the doctor. I know. This is a different kind of doctor. She helps make sure kids are safe and loved. Luca seemed to accept this. Okay, but Daddy has to stay close. I'll be right outside the door, Dominic promised. If you need me, just call. They left Luca with Karen and Maya. In the hallway, Dominic turned on his phone, pulling up the baby monitor app connected to the camera in Luca's room. He and Arya huddled over the screen, watching and listening. Karen sat on the floor with Luca, her demeanor much gentler now. Hi, Luca. Those are cool dinosaurs. Can you tell me about them? Luca launched into an enthusiastic explanation of each dinosaur's name and characteristics. Karen listened patiently, asking questions, getting him comfortable. Your daddy seems like he takes good care of you, Karen said casually. Do you like living with him? I love living with Daddy. He makes me pancakes, and reads me stories and plays with me even when he's tired. Does he get tired a lot? Sometimes. He works a lot, but he always has time for me. What kind of work does your daddy do? Luca shrugged. Business stuff. I don't really know. But he has an office and talks on the phone a lot. Do a lot of people come to the house? Strangers? No. Just Maya, and sometimes Daddy's friend Marcus. And now Mama's here. Are you happy your Mama's back? So happy. Luca's face lit up. I missed her so much. I used to cry sometimes because I wanted her. In the hallway, Arya made a sound of pain. Dominic put his hand on her shoulder, squeezing gently. Did your daddy tell you why she went away? Karen asked. He said she was scared and sad. But she's not scared anymore. She's staying now. How do you feel about what happened yesterday? When you couldn't breathe? Luca's expression grew serious. It was scary, but Daddy came really fast. And then Mama came to the hospital. That was the good part. You weren't scared of your daddy when he came. Why would I be scared of Daddy? He takes care of me. He makes everything okay. The interview continued for another 10 minutes. Karen asked about preschool, friends, whether Luca felt safe, whether anyone ever hurt him. Luca answered every question with the innocent honesty of a 4-year-old, painting a picture of a child who was loved, secure, and happy. Finally, Karen stood. Thank you for talking to me, Luca. You've been very helpful. Can Mama and Daddy come back now? Of course. Dominic and Arya entered immediately. Luca ran to Dominic, who picked him up and held him close. Did I do good? Luca asked. You did perfect, buddy. Karen packed up her things. I'd like to look around the house, if that's acceptable. Just to verify that it's a safe environment. Dominic wanted to refuse. Every instinct rebelled against letting this woman invade his home. But he nodded stiffly. Of course. Look wherever you want. They gave her the tour. Karen inspected the kitchen, the living areas, the bedrooms. She checked smoke detectors and cabinet locks. She looked in the refrigerator, noting it was well stocked with healthy food. She examined Luca's room, taking note of the books, toys, clean clothes. Everything appears to be in order, she said finally. The home is clean, safe, well-maintained. Luca seems happy and well-adjusted. So we're done here? Dominic asked, unable to keep the edge from his voice. For now, I'll be filing a report with my supervisor. We may follow up in a few weeks, just to ensure stability. Karen looked at Arya. Ms. Monroe, I'd like to speak with you privately before I go. Outside, perhaps? Arya glanced at Dominic, who nodded. They went outside, leaving Dominic alone with Luca and Maya. Is that lady going to take me away? Luca asked, his small voice frightened. No, buddy. No one's taking you anywhere. You're staying right here with me. And Mama! And Mama! Dominic hoped he was telling the truth. Through the window, he could see Arya and Karen talking on the front porch. Their body language suggested an intense conversation. Arya was gesturing, clearly emotional. Karen was listening, occasionally responding. Finally, Karen nodded and headed to her car. Arya stood on the porch for a moment, her shoulders slumped, before coming back inside. What did she say? Dominic asked immediately. Not here. Arya glanced at Luca, who was watching them anxiously. Later, they spent the rest of the morning in a state of uneasy normalcy. Maya made lunch. Luca played. Dominic worked from his office, though he couldn't concentrate. Arya sat in the living room with her laptop, supposedly working but mostly staring at the screen. Around 2 o'clock, Luca went down for a nap. The moment his door closed, Dominic found Arya in the kitchen making coffee. Tell me everything. Arya poured 2 cups and sat at the table. Karen wants me to prove I'm serious about staying. She said the fact that I abandoned Luca for 3 years and then suddenly reappeared raises red flags. She's concerned I'll leave again and traumatize him further. What did you tell her? That I'm staying. That I'm getting an apartment here in Chicago, transferring my work, making it permanent. Arya wrapped her hands around her coffee mug. She also asked about your business. She knows, Dominic. She knows what you really do. Everyone knows. They just can't prove it. She said if there's any indication that Luca is in danger because of your activities, she'll remove him from the home immediately. Dominic's blood ran cold. She can't do that. I'm his father. She can if she determines you're an unfit parent. And Dominic, your reputation works against you. The rumors, the associations, the way people talk about you, it all builds a case that you're not safe. I've kept him safe for 4 years. Not a single incident. Not one threat that's gotten close to him. Until yesterday, when someone followed you to this house. The words hit like a punch. Dominic stood abruptly, pacing to the window. That's handled. It won't happen again. You can't guarantee that. Not in your world. Then what do you suggest? That I just give up? Let CPS take my son, because I'm not respectable enough? No. I'm suggesting you do what you talked about last night. Change. Really change. Not just letting one guy go, but actually walking away from the dangerous parts of your empire. It's not that simple. Why not? You have money. You have legitimate businesses. Why do you need the rest? Because walking away makes me vulnerable. Makes Luca vulnerable. Or staying in makes him vulnerable. You have to decide which risk you're willing to take. They stared at each other across the kitchen, the weight of impossible choices pressing down on them. I need time, Dominic said finally. I can't just walk away from everything overnight. There are obligations, arrangements, people depending on me. How much time? I don't know. Months, maybe. It's complicated. We might not have months. Karen's watching us now. Any incident, Any problem, and she comes back with a court order. Dominic's phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Emergency meeting tonight. The Calabrese situation has escalated. 8 p.m. at the usual place. Dominic stared at the message, his jaw clenching. Victor Calabrese, the rival who'd been asking about the Riverside property. Whatever was happening, it wasn't good. I have to go out tonight, he said. Dominic, no. Not now. Not with CPS watching. I don't have a choice. This is about protecting Luca. If I don't handle the situation, it could get much worse. And if something happens to you? If you don't come back? What happens to Luca then? Nothing's going to happen to me. You can't promise that. Aria's voice rose with frustration. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You can't stop. Even with CPS threatening to take our son, even with me begging you, you still have to go handle some dangerous situation. What would you have me do? Ignore threats? Hope they go away? I'd have you put Luca first. For once, actually put him ahead of your empire. The accusation stung, because part of him worried she was right. But he couldn't see another way. Everything I do is for Luca. No. Everything you do is for control. For power. For maintaining your position. And you tell yourself it's for Luca, but really, it's because you can't let go. You don't understand my world. I understand enough. I understand that you're going to keep making the same choices until something terrible happens. And by then it'll be too late. They were interrupted by Luca calling from upstairs. Mama, Daddy, I'm awake. Aria wiped her eyes and went to get him, leaving Dominic standing in the kitchen, feeling like the walls were closing in from all sides. CPS investigating. Aria demanding he change. Marcus summoning him to deal with threats. Every part of his carefully balanced life was collapsing at once. He texted Marcus back. I'll be there. But this needs to end tonight. Whatever it takes. The afternoon dragged. Dominic played with Luca, read him stories, all while his mind churned with plans for the evening meeting. Aria was distant, polite but cool. The warmth from the morning was gone, replaced by tension that even Luca seemed to sense. Are you and Mama fighting? Luca asked when Aria was in the bathroom. No, buddy. Just talking about grown-up stuff. But you seem mad at each other. Sometimes grown-ups disagree. But we both love you. That never changes. Luca considered this, then climbed into Dominic's lap and hugged him. I love you, Daddy. You're the best daddy in the whole world. Dominic held his son close, breathing in the scent of his shampoo, memorizing the weight of him. I love you too, Luca. More than anything. At 7 o'clock, Dominic showered and changed into a dark suit. Armor for the evening ahead. When he came downstairs, Aria was reading to Luca on the couch. I have to go, Dominic said. Aria looked up, her expression a mixture of disappointment and resignation. When will you be back? Late. Don't wait up. Daddy, where are you going? Luca asked. Just a work meeting, buddy. I'll see you in the morning. Can you read me a story before you go? Dominic checked his watch. He should leave now to be on time. But Luca's hopeful face made the decision for him. One quick story. They went upstairs to Luca's room. Dominic read a book about a brave knight fighting a dragon, all while thinking about the battles he was about to face in the real world. Not dragons, but men who were just as dangerous. Daddy, Luca said as Dominic tucked him in. Be careful, okay? The words were too mature, too knowing for a 4-year-old. Dominic wondered what Luca picked up from the tension in the house, from overheard conversations. I'm always careful. Get some sleep. I love you. Love you too. Downstairs, Aria was waiting by the door. She handed him his jacket without a word. Aria, just come back, she said quietly. Whatever you have to do tonight, just make sure you come back. For him. I will. I promise. He left before she could say anything else, before the fear in her eyes could make him question what he was about to do. The meeting place was a private room in a restaurant Dominic owned, officially closed for renovations, but actually a neutral ground for conducting business. Marcus was already there, along with 3 of Dominic's most trusted men. Update, Dominic said, sitting at the head of the table. Victor Calabrese has made a move, Marcus began. He took over 2 of our distribution points in the south side. No violence, just moved his people in and shut us out. That's a declaration of war. It gets worse. He's been spreading word that you're weak, that you're distracted by personal problems. He's telling people the Santoro Empire is vulnerable. Dominic's jaw clenched. This was what he'd been afraid of. Any sign of weakness, any crack in the facade, and rivals would pounce. How did he know about personal problems? Tony Ginelli's been talking. Not about specifics, but enough to create questions. Victor's smart enough to read between the lines. Dominic closed his eyes briefly. Letting Tony go had been a mistake. Mercy was seen as weakness in this world. What's Victor's endgame? He wants your territory. All of it. He thinks if he pushes hard enough, you'll crumble. Then we push back. Hard. Boss, if we escalate, this could get bloody. Are you sure you want to go there right now? With CPS watching, with your kid's mother back in the picture? I don't have a choice. If I back down, I lose everything. And then Luca's in more danger, not less. They spent the next 2 hours planning a response. Strategic moves, not violent ones. Dominic was done with bloodshed, but he wasn't done protecting what was his. They'd shut down Victor's new operations, reclaim the lost territory, and make it clear that Dominic Santoro was not weak, was not vulnerable, was not to be challenged. Around 10 o'clock, Dominic's phone rang. Arya, I have to take this. He stepped out into the hallway. What's wrong? Luca had a nightmare. He's asking for you. Arya's voice was tight. I tried to calm him down, but he wants his daddy. Dominic could hear Luca crying in the background, calling for him. His heart clenched. Put him on. Daddy. Luca's voice was small, frightened. I dreamed the bad thing came back. I couldn't breathe again and you weren't there. I'm here now, buddy. I'm right here. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. I want you to take deep breaths with me. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Can you do that? He heard Luca trying, the shaky inhales and exhales. Good job. Keep doing that. You're safe, Luca. You're in your bed with Rexy, and Mama's there with you. Nothing bad is going to happen. When are you coming home? Dominic looked back at the meeting room, where men were waiting for his decisions. Then he thought about what Arya had said, about putting Luca first. Really first. Soon, buddy. Very soon. Can you be brave until I get there? I'll try. That's my boy. I love you. Love you too, Daddy. Dominic ended the call and stood in the hallway, the choice crystallizing in his mind. He could stay here, make plans, wage war against Victor Calabrese, maintain his empire, prove he wasn't weak. Or he could go home to his son. He went back into the meeting room. Marcus, finish the planning. I'm leaving. Boss, we need you here. These are major strategic decisions. And you can handle them. You've been my right hand for a decade. Make the calls you think are right. I trust you. Marcus stared at him. Are you sure? No. But I'm doing it anyway. Dominic grabbed his jacket. My son needs me. That's where I should be. He drove home faster than he should have, his mind replaying Luca's frightened voice. When he walked into the house, it was quiet. He went upstairs and found Arya sitting on Luca's bed, stroking their son's hair. Luca was awake, his eyes red from crying. Daddy! Luca sat up, reaching for him. Dominic crossed the room in 2 strides and gathered Luca into his arms. I'm here, buddy. I'm right here. You came back. Of course I came back. I'll always come back to you. Luca clung to him, his small body trembling. Dominic held him close, making soothing sounds, rubbing his back. Over Luca's head, he met Arya's eyes. She looked surprised to see him home so early, but also relieved. Why don't I sleep in here tonight? Dominic suggested. Right here on the floor next to your bed. That way, if you have any more bad dreams, I'm right there. Really? Really? They set up a makeshift bed with extra blankets and pillows. Luca settled back into his race car bed, but his hand hung down over the side, reaching for Dominic. Dominic held his small hand, thumb rubbing soothing circles. Sing the song, Luca requested. Dominic started the lullaby he'd been singing to Luca since he was a baby. An old Italian song his own mother had sung to him. His voice was rough, unpracticed, but Luca's eyes started to drift closed. Arya stood in the doorway watching. When Luca finally fell asleep, She gestured for Dominic to follow her out. They stood in the hallway, speaking in whispers. "You came back," she said. "You sound surprised." "I am. I thought that meeting was important." "It was, but Luca needed me more." Dominic rubbed his face tiredly. "You were right earlier. I've been so focused on protecting him through power and control that I forgot the most important way to protect him is just to be there." Arya's eyes shimmered with tears. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything. I'm not doing this for credit. I'm doing it because it's right." He paused. "I'm making changes, Arya. Real changes. I told Marcus tonight to start transitioning me out of the dangerous operations. It'll take time, but I'm done being the person you were afraid of. Dominic, I'm not asking you to forgive me or trust me or give us another chance. I'm just telling you that whether we're together or not, I'm going to be the father Luca deserves. The man he thinks I am." Arya stepped closer and did something that surprised them both. She kissed him. Soft, brief, but full of emotion. "Thank you," she whispered when she pulled back. "For choosing him. For coming home. I'll always choose him. And you." The words came out before Dominic could stop them. "I'm choosing both of you, Arya. I'm choosing family over empire. I should have done it 3 years ago." They stood, there in the dim hallway, the ghosts of their past hovering between them. There was so much left unsaid, so many wounds still healing. But for the first time in 3 years, they were facing the same direction. Putting Luca first, building something real. "I'm staying," Arya said suddenly. "Not just for a few weeks. I'm staying in Chicago. I'm going to be Luca's mother, really be his mother. If you'll let me." "If I'll let you?" "Arya, he needs you." "I need." Dominic stopped himself. "We both need you here." "I'm scared," she admitted. "Scared of messing this up. Scared of falling back into that dark place. Scared of you. Of me. Of how much I still feel for you. Of whether we can really make this work, or if we're just going to hurt each other again." Dominic took her hand, the gesture feeling both new and familiar. "I'm scared too. But maybe being scared means we care enough to try. To really try this time." From Luca's room came a small sound. Both parents immediately moved to the door. Luca was stirring, reaching for where Dominic had been. "I should get back," Dominic said. "I'll stay too," Arya offered. "In the chair. In case he needs me." They settled back into Luca's room, Dominic on his makeshift floor bed, Arya curled in the chair. Luca's hand found Dominic's again, and he settled with a contented sigh. "Mama," Luca mumbled sleepily. "You're here too." "I'm here, baby." "Good. We're all together. Like a real family." "We are a real family," Dominic said softly. "We always were." Luca smiled in his sleep, secure in the presence of both his parents. In the quiet darkness, Dominic lay awake thinking about the choices he'd made, the ones he was about to make. Leaving the meeting tonight was just the beginning. He had an empire to dismantle, carefully and strategically. He had rivals to handle, legitimate businesses to build up, a new life to construct from the ashes of the old one. But looking at his son sleeping peacefully, at Arya keeping watch in the chair, he knew it was worth it. All of it. Whatever it took to keep them safe, to keep them together, to build the family they should have been all along. His phone buzzed quietly. A text from Marcus. Handled the Calabrese situation. Peaceful resolution. He's backing off. Call me in the morning. Dominic felt relief wash over him. Maybe mercy hadn't been weakness after all. Maybe there was another way to be powerful. Not through fear and violence, but through being someone worth following. Someone worth respecting. Someone his son could be proud of. He closed his eyes, his hand still holding Luca's, and let himself rest. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new decisions, new battles to fight. But tonight, in this moment, his family was together. Safe. Whole. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you love this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.